Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, viewers, friends of Iqra TV. Welcome to another edition of Real Talk. I'm your host Iqbal Bana. I come into your rooms, as I say, every week, trying to bring to you issues of interest that we feel that you might find interesting. It may help you in your day-to-day lives. We talk about all sorts of subjects. We've talked about politics, Islamophobia. We talked about mental health, education, etc., etc. And I try and bring you some guests who can help us around the issues that we talk about. And every week I hope that those who come will inspire you into doing something that you may not have thought of doing before or have been doing it, but they'll give you a different slant on it. Today my guests are three very eminent young people from the surrounding area of Bradford, and I want to talk to you about giving. The Muslim community is extremely well known for giving very generously in all sorts of causes. The Sunday Times did a report about 3-4 years ago, maybe even longer, which actually showcased how the Muslim community is the most generous giving community in this country. At that time, they estimated that over £100 million a year goes from the Muslim community in charity to all sorts of causes around the world, mainly obviously because we come from the Asian subcontinent. In the Asian subcontinent itself, from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, then that is followed by the Middle East, in Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and Africa as well, which is very good and very well. But what I want to talk to you about is, what are we as a Muslim community, Muslim family, doing in our own localities? Remember, we have a duty first and foremost to look after those within our own situation, within our own curtilage, within our own catchment area. And that says, even zakat, for example, zakat is first duty to the people who are related to you, who are in need of zakat. If they are okay, then you look at your neighbors and the surrounding areas. But sadaqah also, it doesn't exclude non-Muslims. Sadaqah also applies to non-Muslims as well. So I want to today talk to these young people, and I'll introduce them very shortly, about what they have done and how they have benefited local communities. And the other thing we need to realize is, we as a Muslim community have a reputation through Islamophobia and the anti-Muslim hate that is permeating in this country, about we are just takers. We take benefits, we take all sorts of stuff from the state, but we don't give anything back. Well, actually the truth is completely the opposite. We know that Muslim individuals and Muslim families and Muslim businesses do put a lot back, but the media doesn't represent that because they don't want to show us in a good light. So one of the purpose of today's discussion is to showcase some of the work that has been happening, not just in Bradford, but particularly in Bradford with my three guests, but around the country as well, and showcase some of the work that they have been doing, some of the gifts that they've been making, and how that has improved the lives of not just the Muslim community in the surrounding areas, but the general community as well. So can I welcome my three guests today? Ishfaq Farooq, who is from My Lahore, a very well-known, highly respected and regarded brand of restaurants throughout the UK. Sajjad Hussain and Mohammed Kola from Adams Foods, a very big, large conglomerate in the food services, providing foods, ingredients for the food industry, the restaurants and the catering services. And both these companies and others who I'll mention throughout the program, like Regal Foods, Nafis, Regal Cafe, ICS Foods as well, have also done quite a lot of work. But unfortunately, I can't accommodate all of them here today. Inshallah, later on I'll bring them here as well. But let me say welcome, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sajjad is on my left, then Mohammed Kola, and then Ishfaq from My Lahore. As Sajjad and Mohammed are from Adams Foods. Ishfaq is from My Lahore. All of them well-known brands throughout the nation. Thank you very much. Jazakallah for coming. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
Nice to have you here. Young men born and bred in this country who have a passion for making sure that those who are less fortunate themselves have something that that helps them in their day-to-day lives. So can I start with Ishfaq? Ishfaq, I know with you in particular, because I was involved in the visit by Prince William and his wife, when they were the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, and they wanted to see the work that My Lahore was doing for young people, giving them employment opportunities, but also doing work in the community. Now, I know for a fact that you've done a lot of work, but my viewers who live outside the area will not know. So the work that you do with feeding the homeless, for example, every week, the community champion work that you do, all the work that you did around COVID, supplying the NHS, etc., was absolutely phenomenal. Just give us a little flavour of some of that work, so we can start this debate. By the way, if you want to ring in, don't forget the numbers on your screen: 01274 214 299. Be useful and be very helpful if you want to share your views and your thoughts on how the community can actually improve on what we're doing already and what these guys are doing, or share some of the things that you're doing as well in your areas, in your communities. So sorry, Ishfaq, do you want to just very quick flavour of what you would do?
Yeah, so the Milo brand is much more bigger than just a food business. We really feel that it's a vehicle to do good. And so whenever we get the opportunity from a restaurant point of view or even from the community point of view, we're there. Like we support over 50 charities that we support in, mashallah, awareness, Muslim and non-Muslim charities. And then whenever there's a need in the community, whether that's to homeless charities, the Curry Circle, every week we've been doing that for the last 10 years or so.
That's where you provide food for 100 people every week?
Yes, or more, every week without fail. And majority of them are non-Muslims too. So we don't look at faith, but even though we're a faith-led business, it's anybody that's in the need in our community. And then we work very closely with the hospital charity. And there's sort of this this thing where we talk about charities always we should give abroad and not, everyone's okay in the UK. But you know better, you'd be surprised. There's much more need. Like the charity starts from home first. Exactly. There's so much need in our society. Even just supporting your local charity like the NHS charity that we are both businesses support. It's just giving that our kids go there. Yes, we're not saying that they need NHS funding, they get the funding and stuff, but the extra stuff that what we can provide, whether that might be a donation of small kids' cars, or it might be a donation of food, or it might be financial or non-financial, it goes a long way because it's our kids who visit there. Who's going to be in A&E, who's going to go to
our
the children's
kids, our elders, everybody gets treated in these hospitals.
Everyone. And then during the COVID, like Adams, and many other businesses in the community, everybody helped out. We worked very closely with the government, the council, the charities. There was so many stories, but one what really hit us was when COVID kicked in. Everybody was just like a shock. Even the council stopped working at one point. And I was surprised to know that there are so many children in this country that only have one hot meal a day, and that hot meal is in school.
Yes.
And when the schools were shut and the council was getting time to get back to working again, them children didn't have no hot meals at home. And when we got that message, so what we did, we worked with many charities, worked with local council to really get the food out to them at homes, and support many people. We also had a hotline too, where anonymous, where people could just call in, and because people, especially in our community, there's we're ready, not proud, but we don't want to show that we need something, even though our next door neighbour might need something a lot more. So we did a lot of that too. So yeah, whatever, like Adam says, we try our best to support the community as much as
excellent. We'll go into more detail. I mean, Sajjad and Mohammed, obviously you come from Adam's Food Services. I know you also helped during the COVID period as well. But also recently, when we had this Sisters of Iftari initiative, which was started in Bradford, it started as a small project and it's mushroomed into a project where 45 towns and cities across the whole of the United Kingdom got involved with that, and hundreds of sisters, Muslim sisters who were lonely, who had no family whatsoever, who were breaking their fast on their own, found themselves at least surrounded by other Muslim sisters. And as a result of that, obviously they were looking for support, etc. And companies like yours did support them. But I'm sure you're doing some other work as well. So if you want to just give us some flavour.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Iqbal Bhai, for inviting us to your show.
I want to showcase your work.
It's great to be here alongside businesses like Milo Halls, who do a fantastic job. And I'm sure everybody agrees that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a platform to be able to do the good that we do. And one of the things that I have a conversation with Ishfaq's brothers and also kind of Milo Hall in general, as well as older brother Sajjad here, is the whole point of kind of business and so on is not to look at what you're doing for yourself, it's what you can actually do for the society around you. Exactly. And that's the kind of Islamic kind of ethos, what the Sahabas did and everything else. So alhamdulillah, we've been quite fortunate as a business to help throughout COVID, like Milo Halls, like many other businesses around in the community who have clubbed together. I can remember, dropping off bags of rice and so on to people's houses, Muslim and non-Muslim. Likewise, Sajjad by Sajjad, making sure, again, closer to home, we pay the living wage, similar to Milo Halls in terms of to make sure that our guys are looked after. In COVID, we made a conscientious decision to say that everybody gets paid 100% when the government hadn't announced what they were going to do. And as a company that's got Islam at the heart of it, even though we see ourselves as a normal business, our ethos and our ethics come from Islam and that Islamic kind of. So again, we made sure that we support the community in that way. From a personal time perspective, I know Sajjad spends a lot of time doing various things charitable. I'm involved in grassroots sport, which is very close to my heart because I think the tarbiyah for the kids comes from that. We support, like Milo Halls, again. And I think that you get a general theme with the companies that you've discussed, Regal, Milo Halls, all the other companies. You see kits that are worn by non-Muslim children and Muslim children with Milo Halls or Adams Food Service or Regal Foods. And it's a thing.
One of the things, obviously, that a lot of people didn't realize until COVID really hit, that how many families we had within our own community who were struggling.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know for a fact that in my area and other areas, and certainly this Sisters Iftar has highlighted that there are Muslim families themselves who are now in this country who become zakat haqdar.
Absolutely.
Because of the economic situation that we're in. They're actually looking for handouts. And I know in many areas Muslim organizations are now turning their focus towards these people. I mean, obviously, as a business, do you get calls from people saying, we know families who are in this situation?
So, Assalamu alaikum, Iqbal. Again, thank you very much for the invite. MashaAllah, it's an honor to share the platform with Milo Halls. Everybody knows Milo Halls is part of, and they spread across such a wide geographical area, mashallah, and they do some awesome work. Going back to the COVID in particular, I think as a business, it really hit home when our customers are primarily takeaways. And the first question what they were asking is, can we open? And you've got to remember, there's, across we're coast to coast, so from Liverpool, Humberside to Merseyside, we're in Lancashire, in Preston, Bradford, Sheffield, Nottingham, all the way to Birmingham. And we literally serve thousands of takeaways. And the first question, and we became that focal point where people wanted advice. Can we open our takeaways? This is our livelihood. And alhamdulillah, we were blessed. We have some fantastic politicians in Bradford. Naz Shah approached us, and I believe she went to Milo Halls and all the big sort of rocks, I call the pillars of the community. And she said, look, Saj, you need to open. This is a policy of the government. You guys are part of the essential industries. So because people are not able to
food is one of the industries that was allowed
we were part of the essential industries, and we were core to supplying the takeaways, which were the only source of hot food being delivered to people who were in effect locked down. And Naz came down, she brought an entire film crew down, and we really then spread that message, and we said, look, we're going to open 24 hours a day, we're going to open 7 days a week, and we are not going to let any of the customers down, and in effect we're not going to let the community down. And none of the price hikes or anything. We just kept everything as it was. We maintained our services.
That's I understand that. Obviously, the food industry was one of the industries that was allowed to sort of cut trade, particularly the fast food trade. Because that is something that people was essential.
And it was very challenging those days.
I'm sure it must have been.
And I remember one of the members of staff coming and saying, "Look, I have to pay the mortgage, is my job safe?" And alhamdulillah, it was a great relief, to be able to turn around to people like that and say, yes.
Obviously, Sajjad is very good. I mean, I know my Lahore, and there's lots of other businesses who retain their staff. Some obviously had to take the staff and say, look, we can't continue giving them the wage, and some took furlough and kept them going, so others didn't. What I particularly wanted to focus on is, the charitable also work that you did, work that, you know, like my Lahore did. In terms of, I know you supplied food to the hospitals, nurses and doctors who were working were not going home, right? Because they needed food. I know, you know, some companies supplied, for example, even hand cream. Nurses and others were desperate for hand cream because they were working in the hospital, you know, 12-hour shifts, and they were finding it very difficult to sustain that. I mean, one of the bedding companies that I worked with very closely in Leeds wanted urgent beds for doctors and nurses because they were not going home. So I got an email message from the chair of the NHS Trust, and within 3 days, 20 beds and mattresses from a company called Deluxe Beds in Huddersfield, they delivered them for free. So it's that type of, what I want to show my viewers is that, you know, we can do lots of stuff, but what are we really doing that actually makes a difference to people's lives here and now? So, you know, obviously in COVID, a lot of things became highlighted.
Absolutely. So in COVID, Iqbal Bhai, so direct answer to your question, one of the things that we did as a business is sanitizer wasn't available. Bodies couldn't be washed. Again, in all people's homes, if you didn't sanitize, people couldn't visit. And one of the things that we did, and I did personally with the likes of Brother Sajad and some of our friends who's actually in Dubai now, Iftikhar, you know very well from Highgate Beds, we went and delivered the sanitizers to each of the actual spraying, the PPE. We actually went and delivered it to all the local mosques.
And these were essential things.
Absolutely. Without which the council wouldn't let you operate a ghusl or a burial service. And again, not just looking at our community, we looked at the wider community, all people's homes we delivered out to. We delivered out to asylums where there were people with mental difficulties and so on. So there was a number of things, and I think the community as a whole clubbed together. It wasn't just the Muslim community at that stage, but one of the things that we show as the Muslim community is whether there's floods, and I know Ishfaq's been involved in these things, where, you know, rural areas where they've probably not even seen a Muslim before, and we think we live in places like Batley and Dewsbury or Bradford, and we think a lot of people have seen Muslims. Again, we only represent a very small percentage of people, and there's places in York and Harrogate that they don't actually see people with coloured people or people from different creeds. But again, we've been there on the ground, boots on the ground, and we've had conversations with people at Salah time that we need to pray, and for them to understand that, look, yeah, you're praying in the church, and you say, look, for us, everywhere is a place of worship. And that leading by example, by actions. So we're not actually...
And the impact that has on non-Muslims is phenomenal, isn't it?
Absolutely phenomenal.
I mean, it changes people's minds. I know people who previously were Islamophobic and racist, for example. When they saw Muslims coming there, delivering food, delivering sanitizers, delivering PPE, you know, they changed their minds about whatever negative images they had about us, right? They started thinking again. And obviously that is very important, and this is the message that I want my viewers to understand. We do a lot of work back home in India, Pakistan, and, you know, Bangladesh and other places, which is absolutely necessary. But what I want to ask is, do we now understand the need to do some of that in this country? That we need to change the focus, because as I say, the image of Muslims in this country, the Muslim community is supposed to be the most generous community and is the most generous community. But are we narrowing down our help to those people, you know, we are associated with, who are, you know, our kith and kin, and we are ignoring people who are from other communities who may not be Muslims, who are equally in need of our support and help? And that's why I want to showcase, you know, the work that you're doing. I mean, like I know my Lahore, for example, you know, you don't distinguish, you don't discriminate whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim. You just talked about how you've done it. But what else are you doing that can help the local? It's like I say, there's lots of people now. We know in the current climate, the kids going to school, as you say, without a hot meal, right? There are people struggling with food banks. Even food banks are empty at the moment. You know, I get messages every day that shelves in food banks are absolutely depleted of some of the stuff. Is there anything else that you are doing? I mean, you're a food supply business.
Yeah, so the big main charities, they're all very, very close friends now. You know, we've been engaged with Adeem at Penny Appeal, and we've got Tufail like Islamic Relief. You know, all the main charities are, and what the main charities have realised, well, not realised, but they've actually turned the focus on is home as well.
Right.
So you have Bradford-based charities like In Touch Foundation, You have Penny Appeal, who do the food distribution in Wakefield and the surrounding areas. So we've been engaged with people like that right from the beginning, and alhamdulillah, you know, there's lots of people who from our Muslim community who now are very busy helping the community. And like you said, Iqbal Bhai, they don't look at colour, they don't look at faith, and that's very important. You know, we've become part of the community, and we look at community problems holistically, not just as, you know, this section of our section or that section. We genuinely, I think, as a community now, and especially from the business community, we look at the community as a whole. And I'm sure, I mean, Ishfaq, genuinely, I see regular, you know, posts in the Telegraph and in various news outlets that, you know, My Lahore's has been serving the community, and I know they don't distinguish, obviously.
Yeah, no, charity starts from home. You know, there's so much need here. Look, we're living in a cost of living crisis.
Oh, definitely.
Everybody's struggling in their own ways. We as businessmen, we are struggling as businesses.
Yes.
Never mind, the people and at home. There's a need here. And what happened was the school meals. We started doing the school meals because what happened was when the government, I think there was a threshold of a certain amount. If a parent's earning a certain amount, then you weren't qualified for school meals.
School meals, yeah.
And there were kids. I had head teachers contact us and saying, you know, there are children who are bringing empty lunch boxes into school. And the reason why they're bringing the empty lunch boxes is because they don't want to be laughed at to say in front of their friends, oh, he hasn't got. You know, kids are like, you know, and they bring empty lunch boxes. Let's just sink that in empty lunch boxes to school because they couldn't afford it. And you open that, there's nothing in there. And teachers, and they said, we don't know what to do. It's a massive problem. So alhamdulillah, we supply a lot of schools. Again, there's a lot of stuff that you do. So same with Adams, and you know, a lot of the business you do that is not being shown, because that's the whole point about Islam is, you know, it's that message where you give one hand, the other hand shouldn't realize. So that's all great too, but we need to also highlight these things. The reason for that is because then other people can know, actually there is a need. I want to help too. I want to do this too.
And that's why I'm doing this program.
And this is brilliant because you're showcasing something and there's a need at home. Your next door neighbor, you might be thinking, okay, he lives in a nice house or something. You don't know how he might be struggling. Just by you might not know that there's so many stories out there.
Well, it's horrific. I mean, I know for a fact, you know, I've had, you know, people ring me in the month of Ramadan, before Ramadan, and some of the stories I've heard is absolutely unbelievable about Muslim families who are really, really struggling. I mean, I know one case where the husband is seriously ill. He goes in and out of hospital. He doesn't get any benefits. The wife is not a citizen of the country. She's not allowed to get any benefits because they've got 3 children. They get a little bit of benefits, and they're absolutely struggling with food and paying bills. You know, and just for information, I mean, Al Khair is a massive organization. They do a lot of charity work as well. Even here from this center, you know, every week there's 200 meals go out to those people who need it. There's a lot of Muslim asylum seekers and refugees who don't have any benefits at all, and they're also being, you know, looked after. I mean, 200 or 300 or 400 is a drop in the ocean at the moment. You know, there's much more need out there.
And that's if everybody does it. If that 200-300 meals, you do it for your community, I do it for my community do in all many community areas. You solve the problem. So it's about highlighting. It's great that you're doing this, where you're highlighting this. There is a need, you know, at home.
As I said, you know, obviously this is a huge issue that's been at the back of my mind for some time now, where, you know, we are a generous community. There's no doubt about it, and millions of pounds go out from this country to places like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Africa, other places. But, you know, one of my priorities is to make sure that we don't forget those within our own communities, those who live in our areas. Sometimes we don't know about these people. But if you go out there and you ask questions, you'll find out there's many people in our communities, like I said about this family that I came across. And there's several other families as well who are urgently in need of our support. And what can we do? How can we refocus our attention towards these people as well? And don't forget, it's not just Muslims that we need to look at, there's non-Muslims as well. And that is something that we need to be now focusing on as well. How do we make sure that those Muslim brothers and sisters who live around our area, in our communities, are not starving, are not suffering because we are not helping them? And if we can make that difference, let's do that. We're going to take a break. Inshallah, we'll be back. Don't go away. As I say, have a cup of tea, coffee, faluda, whatever is your poison. We'll be back with you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.